Alexa, good morning.
Okay.
Hey guys, good morning again. I'm not at the office, in case you couldn't tell. So not in our normal studio area. I'm going to turn the light on over here. Give me 1 second. Not in our normal studio area today for the Q&A. My wife is not feeling well, so I am home with her today. I don't know if that light's going to work. I am home with her today. Doing some stuff, making sure she's doing okay. So I'm doing the Q&A from here. A few things I just want to share. Let me find my notes. You would think since I was home today, I would not be running behind, but I'm running behind. So let's talk about a few things. First, hi Katie. Last Sunday, we read through the book of 3rd John, which finished our series on assured, talking about how we can be confident in our salvation because of what Jesus has done. And that particular message was part of our larger series over the last year on the church at Ephesus. We know a lot about the Church of Ephesus. Church of Ephesus got its start in the book of Acts when I think it was Paul and Barnabas. I want to say Paul and Barnabas founded the church, met some believers, proclaimed Christ to them, and then Paul shows up again talking with the elders of the church at Ephesus in Acts chapter 20. He obviously wrote the letter to the church at Ephesus. We call that Ephesians, and we read through that letter last year. And then we started off our year in 2020. We read through the letters of 1 Timothy and then 2 Timothy. And the reason we did that, Timothy was the pastor at the church in Ephesus that Paul had left there, which probably sounds almost as bad as it sounds. Leaving someone in a town, leaving someone in a city to fix a church, to find elders, to recruit elders, to equip elders, and then to do all of these other things. And we talked about that in 1st and 2nd Timothy. And then we just read, over the last month and a half, or 2 months, pretty close, we just read the books of 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. And the reason we read 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, what does that have to do with Ephesus, you might say? John was writing them from Ephesus. So the things that were happening in Ephesus would have informed his letter to the other churches that he was writing this to. And this past week we talked about 3rd John. We talked about the importance of and the value of hospitality and the importance of loving others well. And in his letter, John commended Gaius in the way that he welcomed people he didn't even know, the way that he welcomed believers that he wasn't really in relationship with. John writes, some of the traveling teachers recently returned and made me happy, telling me about your faithfulness and that you're living according to the truth. Well, how did John live according to the truth? He says, you're being faithful to God when you care for the traveling teachers who pass through, even though they are strangers to you. So Gaius was faithful to the truth. He was living according to the truth by by loving people who he did not know. Demetrius, Diotrephes, on the other hand, didn't want to have anything to do with these people. He did not love them. It says in 3 John verse 9, he loves being first. He loves being the leader. Not only did he not welcome these false teachers, but he set out of the church, he cast out of the church people who did welcome these other teachers. So Diotrephes was not an example of hospitality. So one of the things that we've been doing at WestWay ever since we started to regather is we take time when our 10:15 gathering is over. We take time. This week it was about 20 minutes worth of time, and what we do is we create, whoever's giving the message on that given Sunday, we create 3 or 4 questions, and we just have a large group discussion. And I really want to encourage you to stay for that. There have been a lot of really good things that come out of that. It's hard to hear, and we could probably be doing things differently in the way that we do that. We had a staff conversation about that on yesterday morning about how we could make that time better. We're thinking about some ways maybe to encourage people to, the thing is physical distancing is something that we kind of have to do. So we're talking about ways maybe to move people and maybe have discussion by sections. There's a few things that we're trying to do. But one of the things that allows us to do in having those conversations is to really apply what it is that we've talked about. And this past Sunday, we were talking about hospitality. We were talking about our reputation. We were talking about the way that we treat other people and what does that say about who Jesus is. As we were having that conversation on Sunday, someone talked about someone who has worked like in a restaurant. She said, basically, Sundays are the worst. When Christians when people coming from church, when Christians come from church and they come into the restaurant, they are the worst. They're frequently unkind. They're frequently in a hurry. They're not nice to the people who are working there. And then she said, and they are just the worst tippers. And like I've heard those kinds of things from people before, and I don't get that. I don't understand that. And I don't think that Christians really understand how poorly we represent Christ when we do things like that. And if you weren't there, if you skipped out on the Q&A, which you can't, we don't force anyone to be there, but it's just that's an opportunity missed for us to hear something. And I would just really want to challenge and encourage you to remember that for people who don't know Jesus, we might be the only Christians they ever actually have an encounter with. We might be the only Christians that people who don't know Jesus, we might be the only Christians they ever see. We might be the only representatives of God that they ever see. And when we don't love other people well, I said this on Sunday, we are portraying a gospel to them. We are always portraying a form of the gospel to people that we come into contact with. And when we go out in public, and when we act like jerks, when we are unkind, when we are rushed, when we don't tip well, when we don't do those things, we are communicating. We are telling people what Christian values are. Does that make sense? Like they are determining what Christians think are important and don't think are important based on the way we treat other people. So they are hearing a gospel of some kind. And it's either going to be a false gospel, which is Christians are unkind, rushed, are ungenerous, or it's going to be a true gospel. Christians are kind. Christians take time to be kind. Christians are generous. That got me thinking. There was a text that we talked about a few weeks ago in 1 John. It's 1 John chapter 4, verses 11 and 12, and it says this: Dear friends, since God loved us that much, and how much? Well, He sent His Son Jesus to sacrifice it. That's what He says in the verse earlier. So I'm actually going to start up a little bit early. I'm going to read 1 John chapter 4, verse 9. God showed how much He loved us by sending His one and only Son into the world so that we might have eternal life through Him. This is real love, not that we loved God, but that He loved us and sent His Son as a sacrifice to take away our sins. Dear friends, since God loved us that much, we surely ought to love each other. No one has ever seen God, but if we love each other, God lives in us, and His love is brought to full expression in us. So this is the John Mulholland paraphrase of 1 John 4, chapter 12. No one has ever seen God, but in their encounters with us, they will see God. They will see God through us. So let that sink in for a minute. When we're unkind, rushed, ungenerous, not nice, what are we saying about who God is when we do those things? What are we saying about the identity of who God is when we do those things? Flip that around. When we are kind, when we're generous, when we are giving, when we do all of the things, when we are sacrificial, for instance, what does that say about who God is? Well, it says that God is kind, God is generous, God is sacrificial. So we have a real opportunity, and I know we've talked about this like a lot. That's because John talks about it a lot. We have a real opportunity as Christians to demonstrate the reality of who Jesus is every day, in all of our conversations, in all of the ways we interact with people. And what John is saying in 3 John is ultimately, for 3 John, the manifestation of Christ, the reality that Christ dwells within me, is demonstrated in the way that I am hospitable. The reality of Christ living in me is demonstrated in the way that I treat other people. Is demonstrated in the way that I talk to people, spend time with them, or don't spend time with them. All of those kinds of things. So this is really important. This is really crucial for us as Christians to understand. I had someone send me a text, so I want to be careful because we talked about texting the other day, so I want to qualify. One of our small groups that Ann and I are a part of. Someone sent a text message in small group the other day, and said, "Hey, I accidentally pulled out in front of someone, and the first thing she said was, and I have a WestWay sticker on the back of my car." And this person followed her home, and there was the person was upset and stuff like that. But I just think it's I'm wearing this WestWay shirt today. And, if I go out into Scottsbluff today, and let's say I go to Walmart or Target, and I just act like a total jerk, and I'm wearing this WestWay shirt, what are people going to think about Westway Christian Church? They're going to think that we're a bunch of jerks, right? It's the same way. Even though I may not wear a shirt that says Jesus on it, I'm a reflection of Him in everything I do. And I've said this before. I really believe that the people that you are most in relationship with in our community know that you are a Christian. And they are watching every move we make. And that's a big responsibility for us as believers. So when we put that on, when we put on Christ, we are then modeling Christ. We are modeling something about Jesus. And I want to encourage you to model things well about Jesus. I want you to wear your WestWay shirt, and I want you to be kind to other people when you're doing it. In fact, if you're not going to be kind, like if you're gonna roll into, if I'm gonna roll into Applebee's on a Sunday, and you're not going to be kind, you're going to be hurried, you're not going to talk to the person that's serving you, and you're not going to be generous, don't wear your WestWay shirt, in fact. Because that's going to say something about our church. That's going to say something about who we are as a people, and we don't want to do that. So I want to just encourage you in those things. Think about the fact that what you do, what you say, the way you treat other people is a reflection of who Jesus is. You are an image bearer of God. You are telling other people something about who God is through your actions. And the question is, am I honoring God with my actions? Am I honoring God with my words? I meant to put show notes in. I don't know if I can. Let me see if I can do it real quick. I think I can. Yes, perfect. Okay, I just put notes in there, and I'll put them in the notes as well. There's a lot of things coming up that I just want to tell you about, and I want to encourage you in. I want to encourage you to not forget about what we're doing to help Cedar Rapids. Last week we sent out an email. This past Sunday we passed out a sheet that basically was the exact same thing in the email. We've posted it on our church Facebook page. We've posted it on our church Facebook group. I've seen many people post it on their own Facebook page. We are collecting supplies to help people in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, who were affected by this storm last week. We are only collecting things through Sunday morning, because Sunday afternoon we're going to load up the trailer, we're going to load up the van, and then Monday morning, as soon as the elders meeting's over, I'm driving to Cedar Rapids. So if you want to be a part of that, I want to encourage you to take a look at the thing that I just posted here, and I will post it in like the header of this video. I'll do that when we're done here. I want to encourage you to take a look at that and bring supplies by. We've already had a number of people bring supplies by. We have a great collection going. It's awesome. I love seeing our church in action. See, this is what we're talking about, right? This is us demonstrating who Jesus is. Don't forget about that. About 25 minutes before I started this video this morning, I just got news of an upcoming food distribution in Scottsbluff. So back in May, and then I think again in June or early July, we distributed produce in Scottsbluff. And I just got word that there is another truck from Convoy of Hope coming on Friday. I do not have details yet. So we're unsure of when that's going to be here. As soon as we know, we will communicate that in all of the normal ways that we communicate. We'll post it on Facebook. If you have the app if you have our WestWay app, I really want to encourage you to turn on notifications. Like last week, for instance, if you had notifications turned on your WestWay app, we sent you that same email information about the Help Cedar Rapids. That's one way that we communicate with you. So if you have the WestWay app, we encourage you to do that. If you have a smartphone and you do not have the WestWay app, just type the word WestWay to the number 77977, download the app, click yes for notifications so that we can communicate with you. So there is a food distribution on, I think on Friday, but I don't know when yet. As soon as we know that, we'll communicate that. I also wanted to let you know that this Sunday at Centennial Park in Scottsbluff, which is off 20th and 5th, at the corner of 20 and 5th, At Centennial Park at 5 p.m., there's a community-wide worship event, kind of a praising God, encouragement for Shane and Miranda Coop. They live just across the street from Centennial Park. As you know, Shane's our pastor of creative arts. He was diagnosed with cancer just about a year ago, and we're having a community-wide worship event, praise event, to support and encourage the Coops. And as a part of that, there is a pie auction. I was contacted by my friend Bruce Peterson over at Grace Chapel, asking if they could, they normally have a church picnic on this same Sunday. And what they normally do is they auction off pies and desserts, and the proceeds of that normally go to the missions that they support. What they've graciously decided to do, and this is so awesome. This is one of the things I love about what's happening in Scottsbluff. What they've graciously decided to do is, instead of doing that pie auction for their missionaries, they're doing that pie auction for the Coops, which is awesome. And they have invited people at WestWay. They've invited all of the other churches to come. If you have a pie you want to auction, all of the proceeds are going to go to the Coops. What I want to encourage you to do, if you have any questions about that, ask me. We posted that yesterday, and Miranda called me and said, hey, people are calling me, asking me some questions. If you have questions about this, please call me. Don't call the Coops. They love the support that they are receiving, and just asking that if you have questions and concerns or things about that, if you would please reach out to me and ask me that question. But Centennial Park this Sunday at 5 p.m. in Scottsbluff for a community-wide worship event and pie auction to show support for the Coops. So questions about that, ask me. Don't call Miranda. Two more things, and then I promise I'm done with our announcement time. Actually, kind of three. Mid-September, the week of the 13th to the 16th, small groups are starting up again. We will have more information about that over the next few weeks. I want to encourage every single one of you that is watching this video, if you are a part of WestWay Christian Church, to join a small group. Join a small group. More information coming. Also, sometime in September, sometime between the 17th and the 20th, we earlier this year we were talking about that Legacy Coalition Grandparenting Seminar. It was going to be a 3-day event. That got moved to March because of the coronavirus. They are hosting a free 3-hour online event for grandparents. We will be hosting that. We will be hosting that at WestWay. I'm saying here because I'm not at WestWay. We're going to be hosting that at WestWay. More info coming soon. We'll let you know when that is. We want to encourage you, if you are a grandparent, you will not want to miss this event. The primary focus is, how do I build relationships with my grandkids when all I can do right now is see them online? What does that look like? And then lastly, every September we host an annual picnic and kind of a fall kickoff for our small group piece, for our programming, all of those kinds of things. The last several years, it's probably been going on longer than that, but the last several years since I've been here, we've been having that just behind me at Oregon Trail Park in Gearing. This year we are hosting our picnic at WestWay on Sunday, September 13th, immediately following the 10:15. John Thomas and their small group are going to be roasting a hog and doing all of that stuff. It's going to look dramatically different than what we've done before. We are not going to be able to do potluck because of the way we can distribute food and all of that kind of stuff. But we're going to be hosting that fall kickoff, that picnic at WestWay Christian Church at our building on Sunday, September 13th, following the 10:15. We need you to sign up. There'll be sign-up sheets this week so that we know how much food we have to prepare, because it's all going to be like, single-use handout stuff. And we just need to know how much food to prepare. So you can let us know that by signing up, the sign-up sheet beginning this week. So I love you guys. I know we talked a lot about announcements, but we talked about a lot about hospitality. I'm going to say this on Sunday, and I've said it before. I did not make it up. My friend Rick Lawrence, I'm going to give Rick Lawrence credit. At one point, he said, "The way we are together is a proclamation of the gospel." Our mission at WestWay Christian Church is to proclaim Jesus as Lord. And one of the ways that we proclaim Jesus as Lord is on Sunday morning at 10:15, when myself or Joe or Mike or Shane, when he's back, when we give the message, that's a proclamation of Jesus as Lord. When we read the Bible, that's a proclamation of Jesus as Lord. When we are together, we are proclaiming Jesus as Lord. The way we are together proclaims Jesus as Lord. The way we act, the way we treat one another, the way we treat others is a proclamation of Jesus as Lord. And I so want to encourage you to think about that today. When you are at work, when you're at school, when you're at home with your maybe with your family or your roommates, the people that you're around, the people that you're with, when you go to the grocery store, you are proclaiming something about Jesus. And what I want to challenge and encourage you to do is to proclaim Jesus as your Lord. Proclaim him as your Lord, the Lord who loved you and sacrificed his life for you. And his desire is to see others come into that relationship because of his sacrifice. So I love you guys. That's what I'm praying for you for today, that you would proclaim Jesus as Lord. Lots of ways to do that. Love you guys, praying with you, praying for you. And for those of you that watch the 7 a.m. Psalm, I'll see you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. here on this page as we continue our time together in Psalm 119. And I hope to see you this weekend at WestWay Christian Church. So have a great rest of your Tuesday. Bye.